Shut up and sit down.
All right, guys, this is Takeover Tuesday, episode 2. My name's Carlos Redlich. I got my home fry, David Allen, on the other side. What's up, David?
How's it going, Carlos?
All good, man. All good. So we were talking about hustling in our first episode. We're going to keep on talking about hustling. What kind of stuff we got on the agenda today, man?
Yeah, well, if people listen to the last episode 1, we sort of left them with a cliffhanger about something you were doing, Carlos, or you were still figuring out. You were talking to somebody about how you could walk into a business, figure out what they needed, find a way to give it to them with very little invested on your own. And I think he said $10,000. I'm not sure. I don't want to quote anybody. Something to that effect. And we're just going to talk about hustling and things you can do to make some extra money in general today.
Yeah, definitely. So what I was actually talking about is I have a kind of a little eBay business I started up with my girlfriend, a couple friends. And what we do is we go to this website. And I don't know if I mentioned this like on one of our calls or what. I think I've talked about it before, but is I'll go on a website called dhgate.com, and it's
okay.
I mean, what's really badass is you can buy a lot of stuff really cheap, obviously because it's wholesale, and then I just put it back online and flip it that way. But I was actually talking to a friend of mine who lives in a small town, and one of the things he goes in and he kind of tries to find he goes into like different small businesses, so like general stores, I guess you could say, that sell a bunch of different stuff. But they'll order, quantity. Okay, yeah. So what I was saying is he'll go in and he finds different products that a business, like a general store or something in his town will need, and he'll go in and find out, hey, how much are you, basically, I don't know his exact script, but basically he'll say, how much do you pay for, these set of watches wholesale? Because I actually have a hookup on this. And they'll say, I'm paying $10 a watch and I'm selling it for, $20 or whatever it is. And he'll say, okay, well, sweet. I actually have a sweet hookup where you can get them all for $5. Assuming you want to just go ahead and order like 100 or 200 or whatever to start with. And he goes and works these deals like that. Now, this is where I was like, maybe we can use DHgate and use that as our main little wholesale site. So that's what we're kind of doing. I haven't closed anybody yet. He's been doing this, but he's kind of been, I don't know what sources he uses to find his stuff, but that's, he's kind of doing this. But that's one thing a lot of people could do is just go into a different business or go into a business, a general store or something where you can find the wholesale version of what they're already selling. And then just you can really just walk in, find out what these stores need or find out what one of these vendors need, and then just give it to them, find a wholesale price for it that you can get it cheaper, give it to them cheaper, and then get a big contract with them. Now, that's it's somewhat easier than said, but it's really not that much more difficult from what I'm finding out now. So there's so many ways to make money, and we're just throwing out different ways. This doesn't mean you have to do this particular hustle and add it to your grind, because sometimes it's good to, instead of really, everybody talks about differentiating your money, and I think if you're gonna be investing in different things, it's a lot easier if you're selling, watches. It's a lot easier to sell watch cases than it is to go and start selling slippers. You know what I mean? So yes, it's not always about taking these ideas, but just there's so many opportunities and so much money out there that's able to be made. Hopefully some of these ideas will just strike somebody up and they'll be like, oh man, you know what, maybe I can do this, or I found a better solution than what they're saying, but it give them a good idea,
Oh yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I think we talked about the DHgate thing before, but I think that's great. You can get things very cheaply and flip them on, like you said, either in person, a brick and mortar business, or like you do on eBay as well. And I think that's just a very easy way to do it, because you're never touching the stuff yourself, really.
Right, exactly. Exactly, and it's so easy, I think, getting started. And there's going to be places where there'll probably be episodes where we go a little bit deeper into, like the psychology of why people buy and a lot more deeper stuff. But I think just whoever's listening, if you're kind of on the edge, because I know a lot of people who have messaged me saying, hey, I haven't started my online business, but I've read, a bunch of different books on it. I've taken different
Right.
courses, but really, it's just so much information. I don't know where to start. How do I drive traffic? How do I write copy? How do I fucking buy a website? And so many different things. And I think just the easiest way to get your feet wet is get some stuff on eBay, because eBay drives all the traffic for it. Like, I really do nothing. And I'm sure there's a bunch of, you can do banner ads and run a bunch of traffic to your eBay accounts. But I mean, if you're really starting out, just throw stuff on eBay, throw stuff on Udemy or Udemy or however you pronounce them. Because these are places where there's already consistent traffic there. It's already kind of a marketplace. And as long as you add some good content and maybe have some good little sales copy on there, you can make a few bucks and start figuring some things out. It's a lot easier, I think, nowadays to build even a 50, 60, 70 grand a year business online.
Right.
Within your first year, I don't think is very hard. I think it's very reasonable. Maybe making millions is a little bit more difficult, but if you're just trying to make 50, 60, 70 grand online, I think that's really realistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think you're entirely right. I think an extra, even if you thought about it, an extra $100 a day or something in the average person's budget, I think would greatly improve the
Right.
quality of their life.
Yeah, I remember when I first started doing some stuff online. I remember when we started hitting $100 a day. It was pretty cool. We blasted
Right.
YouTube with a bunch of videos. Uh, we didn't do any other kind of traffic. We basically
Right.
had software and blasted. The way we marketed that software is do a bunch of videos, like thousands of them and stuff, and then put them
Right.
all over YouTube. And then we just started getting consistent traffic, because
Yeah,
YouTube videos were
absolutely.
getting ranked. And it was pretty cool waking up and seeing, $100, $200, because we were selling a $97 product. So one purchase
Okay.
is all we needed. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's great. There's something I'd like to bring up because we're talking about eBay that I heard. I can't take credit for this. I heard it on. I wish I could remember where, but I heard it on
Right.
another, either a product or a podcast or something, and it has to do with copywriting. And since we're both copywriters, I think it fits into this section of the show. I heard somebody once say that an idea for making some extra money and perhaps improving your copy skills and getting some clients is to find people on eBay that are selling high ticket items and then
Right.
offer to write the copy for them for their products, like houses,
Yeah.
cars, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That has, that you can make some real money off of it. Somebody could want to afford maybe having a copywriter do the actual ad for them.
That's actually funny. I've never approached it that way, but that's definitely true, because I've written copy for some like #1 bestsellers on Amazon, and I don't think I've.
No, that's a very good, and something I have done personally. And this is, again, not something I can take credit for the idea, but it came from the late, great Gary Halbert, I believe. He said to approach a brick and mortar business that has an established clientele list, perhaps. People have bought in the past. A lot of businesses are very terrible at reselling to people that they already have as clients. So, for instance,
Right.
I think Gary used the example, which is something I just went out immediately and did, was an antique store. So where I was at the city I was in at the time, there was an antique store actually across the street from where a cafe I like to go to. And so and chances are they're not probably sending a sales letter to their list or their past clientele or whatever. So
Right.
he said to just go into partnership with the proprietor. You write the letter, they send it to their list, multiple times or whatever, and you guys come up with some sort of agreement on the splitting the profit.
Yeah, I think, no, that's definitely pretty cool. It's funny because I've never really done it. So I mean, I want to say I have, but I don't think I have actually done it that way. And I that method before. I think that's a sweet way of just tapping into something that's already working. And then, I
Right.
mean, if it's a funny little trick. I figured this out when I started writing copy, I guess, for other people. If you do, if like I always talk about adding dear friend to the top of your sales letters, right? So it generally increase your response by like 20, 30%. But it's funny because if you're working with a small business and you put dear friend at the top of their letter, but they're only getting like 50 people a month or something to look at that letter, it's not going to show. They're not going to see those results, right? But I've worked with people who are making 8 figures and they put dear friend at the top of their results, and it makes like a few $1,000s more just by doing that. And I
Right.
mean, it's so funny. I mean, you can really do a lot of good. If the person's already got something going, something solid, and you just tap into that and apply some of the techniques that you can make a huge impact just because the water is already flowing,
Right. No, I think that's perfectly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think if I remember this story correctly too, and this is probably Dean Jackson, of course, who you know.
Right.
Carlos, they have a podcast, a marketing podcast that people should listen to. And he talked about he worked with Bill Phillips, who used to have a big supplement company. I imagine he still does. I don't know. I haven't like followed it for the last 5 to 10 years probably. But at one point, EAS was a huge supplement company, and I believe it was Dean Jackson that was hired to, help them. They had sent a sales letter for some of their products, and they hired Dean to consult. And he simply, I think there was a picture of like 3 semi-trailers or something, and he just put a big red X through one of the semi-trailers, and they resent the sales letter and got like another 50% response or something just by crossing out the trailer because because it was a scarcity idea.
Right. That's huge. That's pretty cool. And that was done
So,
through direct mail, I guess, then, right?
Yeah, direct mail. And Bill Phillips, I think, had written the copy himself, if I remember correctly, until he got Dean to consult. So that was.
See, shit like that is really good because it takes. See, no one would think like if you did that, and let's say you did it to a business that didn't have any real flow. No matter how good that copy is and that technique is, they won't see a dramatic increase in results, most likely. But just doing that one thing really, you said around 50% response or something. I mean, that's huge,
Yeah, and I don't think they thought to that, because they keep telling you in direct mail, keep sending it until so there's no more, you break even or whatever, right? Until the response comes down to 0 or you lose $1 or $2, because you want to sort of wring out that washcloth, if you will, put an analogy in there to get all the response you can out of it. And that was one of the things. I think they might have even sent it, a few more times, crossing out more semi-trailer pictures or whatever, and circling various things. That's the first time I ever heard something like that, and I was like, that is amazing. And I think it's on. He talks about that on his podcast. So if people are looking to hear the real story, and I may have even got the numbers wrong, but I know it was a big response. Dean Jackson, Joe Polish have a marketing podcast everyone should listen to.
Yeah, that's sweet. No, that's badass. And something Gary Halbert did, I heard it on one of his. It may have been a Joe Polish product. I really don't know, but I heard him talking about one thing he either did or was going to do was go to a business. Obviously, I think it was I want to say it was like a retail business, retail type store. Anyway, what he did or was going to do is take a picture of the front of it, just drive by the actual store, take a picture of it, include it in a letter to them, and probably like priority mail it or something. I don't remember that part. But when they open it and they see the picture, it says that there's something in this picture is repelling, 76% of your people or visitors from actually coming in or walking in the store, something like along those lines.
Okay.
And it was so big. It was such a badass thing. And there's something I remember taking away from that, which was adding theater. A lot of people, they don't really get that. And I think that's something really powerful. I mean, we always talk about making it customized and personalizing a lot of your marketing efforts. And that's really the epitome. I mean, it was worth it for him to drive. Obviously, it's probably a huge project. You probably got a lot of money out of it. But I mean, that right there is theater. I mean, that's how you're going to grab somebody's attention. I think if we can kind of, just as marketers or business people, if we can get on the lines of thinking almost theatrically, not in a way just to be theatrical, but to get response, but really, really be theatrical in how we try to get that response in our stories and our hooks and everything like that, you'll have a lot better response and a lot better time doing it,
It's funny you mentioned that, Carlos, because I was out the other day, and I think we talked about on the first podcast how I'm a magician.
Right.
I was out with a younger fellow that I met not so long ago. Shout out to Ruben, who's out there listening. And we were out. Ruben. We were out there at a nightclub a few nights ago, and he's just getting into magic. He's just learning tricks and stuff, and he wanted to hang out. And so I did, and one of the things I did was somebody saw us talking about magic and stuff in the nightclub and wanted to see something. And the things we were talking about was like how, and fits in perfectly with what you're talking about, is the theater of revealing something. So I was showing him, if you're going to do a card trick, for instance, where, let's say, for instance, they name a number, they picked a card, they name a number, you're going to count down the number they named, and the card would appear in the deck of cards at that number.
Right.
There is a theater to getting the maximum response out of that. You have to, the counting, the way the counting is done, and then the way the card is turned over slowly, and there's a pause, and it's, the theater to build it up, so create tension and drama, so that you get the maximum response. And then I went over when people asked us, and I showed him exactly what I meant, because we were talking about it just right at that moment. And he was like, man, that was a lot better than just saying, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, what was your card? Boom, there's your card. People are like, oh, that's cool, but you build up. So what was your card? Really? Okay. It's just so much better. And I think that's exactly, it fits in exactly the same with what you're talking about.
That's funny. Now that it's funny, I thought you were going to go a little bit different in that story, because it's crazy. What you just said is actually, I used to know somebody a while ago, maybe like 7, 8 years ago or something. And he used to be very good at pickpocketing and, taking watches off. Coincidentally, he was also a magician. So I thought you were going to go in his direction, which was funny. So he used to have a scam back in the day that was actually kind of fucked up, but it was really smart if you just kind of look at it from a scientific point of view. So he would actually do a card trick. He would go in there with a friend or whatnot, and he would do a card trick or talk about cards, talk about magic. He would go into these bars or nightclubs, because usually people were messed up anyway, so it was easy picking for him. And he would get people to engage him and basically wipe him clean. But he would get people to engage him, talk, big stuff about his magic, so everybody wants to see his magic. And then before he would actually show the card trick, he'll already have gotten close to them, taking their watch, taking their wallet, whatever it is, and then stay there, do the magic trick, bomb on the magic trick, and be like, man, fuck this, I'm so embarrassed, forget this, dude, fuck you guys, and walk out with all their shit while they're laughing at him. And he's like, I couldn't just get close to him. I have to go in and fuck up on a magic trick. They're just, their eyes are focusing on something else. It was really interesting. So I don't know how that necessarily relates to marketing, but the whole scam culture, con artist thing, although it's really bad and a lot of illegal things to it, there's a lot of behavioral principles I think you can pick up on that,
Oh, yeah, there is. I mean, if you look at the history, there's a guy, and I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. Should probably prepare more. You just never know what you're going to talk about when you get on these podcasts. But he sold the Eiffel Tower. He tried to sell it twice, I believe. I can't remember his name now. But if you look it up on Google or something, people listening, you'll be able to find this guy. He sold the Eiffel Tower once, and then he tried to sell it twice. I think he got busted the second time. But,
what?
Yeah, and it's a fascinating story. And I'm actually going to give a shout out to somebody who made me aware of this story, because his name is Colin Therio.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, a copywriting group on Facebook. And I think his name was Victor Lustig, if I remember, or something like, the Count or something like that. Anyways, yeah, he sold the Eiffel Tower. Now, there was some sort of, I may get this wrong so people could look this up, but there was something to do with, they weren't happy with how fast the Eiffel Tower was being built, like the city of Paris, and so they were all talking about why isn't this going better or something. So there was some talk that maybe they were considering not finishing it or whatever.
Right.
And this is back in the day, of course, when there's no internet and people are not connected. So he went in and he befriended some sort of scrap dealer, and then who knew the rest of the scrap dealers. And they set up this sort of secret meeting. He framed it as a secret meeting where all the scrap dealers are going to come and they're going to bid on scrapping the Eiffel Tower. Because that's what the government was going to do. They're going to scrap. They're going to scrap it. And he sold the Eiffel Tower, for scrap, whatever, to some guy, to secure with what then would be a fortune, I'm sure. Thousands of dollars, but back then. And he had principles later. I don't know if he wrote a book or something, but if you look on, if you find this guy on Wikipedia.
I'm going to have to. Colin is the one who told you about this. I'm going to have to message him.
Colin
I got to get this.
Yeah, he talked about it on his podcast, the Cult of Coffee podcast, and if you go on Wikipedia and you find that guy who sold the Eiffel Tower for scrap, you'll see that the principles are listed in Wikipedia. There's like 10 or 12 principles for conning people, and
Wow.
they're listed right in there. Yeah, so they are definitely related. I think that's what Colin was originally talking about, because
Right.
they're definitely related to marketing and how you sort of create that relationship and scarcity and blah blah blah. You know, to get the quick sale, to close fast, and then get out of town, as it were.
Yeah. And how to build fast rapport.
Right, and create
How to
such
build
a
fast rapport, how to adapt. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff in there. Actually, I heard John Carlton mention a long time ago that if you really want to get some good sales principles, you should go study some con people. And I remember him saying that, and I was laughing. I was like, that's funny. That's just not advice you normally hear. But he's right. It's on the money.
There's a really great thread. And again, I'm gonna give a shout out to somebody, because I read so much, I encounter so much stuff. I try to remember who tells me these things so I can give them some credit. I think it was Ramit Sethi who wrote a book called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich," and he made me aware of this. There's a thread on Reddit where they talk about selling tactics, these sort of tactics and techniques. And the first thread, I believe, was started when somebody had said that a friend of theirs was selling firewood, bushels of firewood, and was having a hard time. So he divided it, if I remember correctly, into two piles, and on one, I put a sign on one pile that said organic firewood, and it was 50% more expensive than regular firewood, and then he sold out of that firewood like immediately. So he started
hilarious.
Play around with that. And somebody had said too on that thread that they had tried to get rid of their puppies, and instead of just calling them puppies or whatever the breed was, they put I think they were on some sort of Indian reservation or something. They put like Blackfoot fire puppies or something. They copyrighted it up basically.
That's awesome. I love it.
And people can punch it into Google, just put Reddit organic firewood, something. They'll find the whole thread, and there's about 50 or 60 comments of various types tactics that people have used.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I never heard about that. I've heard about Reddit, but I never knew they actually had like sales stuff on there. That's pretty.
I'm not a massive Reddit user, but I use it more every day seemingly, because there's all sorts of subreddits for almost everything imaginable, and usually I get turned on to something, and I usually end up lost. It's easy to get lost on something like that for hours.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy.
All right, so let's talk about a couple other maybe things people can go out and do. Something that's very popular right now. I have a few friends that do this. And this is obvious, I'm sure, but we can talk a little bit about it. Is things like Uber.
Oh,
I have a few friends. That drive.
Oh, that's funny. I don't know anything about the business side of it. I love Uber. I started using it, maybe a month or so ago, but I've used I think like 3 or 4 times now. It's pretty awesome. I actually asked them, I was like, hey, what's to prevent you from like kidnapping and killing me? And I think they told me that there was some tracker on their app or their phone that has to be on at all times. And if it goes off, then it's like serious shit. And they do a bunch of background research and everything. So I felt a lot safer. But yeah, no, that's funny. That's pretty cool. That's a nice little side hustle you could do, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's there's a number of those in this internet age. There are a number of companies that have, are looking for people to do stuff. I think like TaskRabbit.com is one where you could do tasks for people, and they'll pay you, like pick up their laundry on your way home or whatever. There's pet sitting services. There's all sorts of stuff out there on these various websites where all sort of the work is done. They're driving people to those websites already, because they're like an aggregator for everybody looking for those services, and you can just simply plug in and become a provider, if you will.
Yeah. I think that's badass, because sometimes I understand, especially in the beginning, you need to kind of have some cash flow. You need to get something going, because sometimes you get money overnight. That's kind of part of the game. And those are cool little stuff. I wouldn't doubt it, because people drive around it, Uber. No, but yeah. So what I was saying is, there's definitely people out there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's Uber drivers out there saving up all their money so they can go ahead and finally launch their business. And I think that's badass. Like, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to be able to just get the work ethic to do whatever you want, especially
Right.
for if this is your business, there's going to be a lot of sacrifices, especially in the beginning, probably within the first like few years. Sure. That you're gonna have to make. A lot. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just you kind of have to do your sacrifice. And if it's driving Uber, delivering pizzas, whatever it's got to do, just have an end game and figure out what it is that you want to do, and just hustle and grind like you're on a fucking mission until you get there.
Yeah. Did you have you ever? I know you because you have online businesses and stuff. And I've hired people online to do a few things for me. Have you ever used Fiverr?
Yeah, I have used Fiverr to like get some graphics done, some
Right.
shit. Yeah, I have. It's pretty
No,
cool. It's a cool little marketplace.
It is. It's they used to have it on their homepage probably like a year and a half ago, where there was one guy who had done so much Fiverring, if that's a verb, that that he had bought himself a house.
Oh wow.
So he had done it. He'd done it $5 at a time or $10 at a time or whatever.
Yeah. No, I know two people who probably make like $1,000 to $2,000 a month doing fan signs and stuff like that for people on Fiverr. And then they
Okay.
just got their level 2 seller and started making like $50 gigs and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, no, that stuff Fiverr is pretty cool because once you get it going, it's kind of like eBay. It's already got its own customer base, just like what you were saying, and
Yeah.
you just tap into it. It's just kind of you're not. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anyone that's gotten really rich, like millions of
Right.
dollars on Fiverr, except for maybe Fiverr. But it's definitely a way where you can start making a few $1,000s. I mean, again, it's if your goal is to make $50,000 to $70,000 a year, I think
Yeah.
you can use Fiverr, eBay, Amazon, like these different methods where all the traffic is pretty much there, and all you got to do is plug in, and maybe with a little bit of work, like 3-4 months of work, you can probably start getting some sales in, maybe even sooner. I'm just assuming people don't know anything,
No, that's
and
true.
and it's really, I don't want to say it's easy. Nothing is really easy, but it's so much simpler. I also don't want to make it sound like it's overcomplicated and scare people away
Right.
because you could really make your first sale by tomorrow. It's not that difficult. It's just a little bit of knowledge and knowing what to plug and play.
Yeah. I want to give another shout out too because a couple of years ago I went through a program put out by a company named AppSumo.
Oh,
Which
okay. I've heard of them.
which you may have heard of them. And they did a business building course. I don't know what they're calling it now. At the time I was a part of it, it was How to Make Your First Dollar, I think was the name of it. And basically it was like a lean startup course. So they talked about getting customers before you start the business. So
Huh.
you find something that you may want to do, and you attempt to find the customers first to see if there's a market before you go through the trouble of getting a website, blah 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 blah. And they would create businesses. The owner of that company, Noah Kagan, he created AppSumo kind of like that, and has created several companies kind of like that. If you go listen to some of his backstory, and they sort of they told you to don't worry about all the rest of that stuff. Find the people that are buying that stuff. And he actually started a jerky company as sort of a example. He started a jerky company in 24 hours, and made it. I don't think he quite made his $1,000 goal in 24 hours, but he came close. And then he later gave that company away as more like marketing thing for AppSumo, I'm sure, but he let somebody else win the CEO thing and take that company over. And I believe it's still thriving. So there's a lot you can do. So if people are looking to maybe get some help with that's the course I would recommend, because they walk you through all the steps. One of the things I had you do at the very beginning, and I think this is important for business, is getting rejected. They wanted you to ask. They wanted you to go ask for a discount at your local wherever you go get your coffee. They wanted you to ask for a 10% discount for no reason at all.
Right.
Just so that, get you in the habit of asking.
Right. That's funny. I used to do that all the time just to see if I could convince them to do it. I used to practice my sales also. I mean, also I was broke, so that would help. But I mean, I used to try and kind of be that person. I was trying to smooth talk my way into getting free shit or discounted. Like at McDonald's, I would be like, hey, thanks so much. You're really awesome. Do you think you could throw in an extra fry since this is a really great day? It'll be
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
so funny, here you go.
Yeah, I would say, and I did that. It wasn't really hard for me because I street perform, so we ask for money all the time. It's kind of a
Right.
part of the culture. But I remember asking for a 10%, good looking discount.
Yeah,
Because
that's good. That's
which
funny.
it's just fun to see people's responses to it too, which is half of it. It's just to see what they're gonna say and stuff. Just interesting for me.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty funny. Yeah, man. I mean, magicians, everybody who's on the street, I mean, you're going to develop a lot of sales skill. Anytime you're interacting with people and you're really trying to interact, you're not just kind of going through the mode. Like people at McDonald's may just go through the fucking motion. But if you were at McDonald's and really trying to engage with every person, I mean, you'd probably learn a lot of life skills. I mean, you would learn a lot of life skills just by engaging with them, being like, yeah, they respond better when I smile this way instead of this way. You know what I mean? You pick up on
Absolutely.
little things. And anytime you're doing stuff where you're in business, if you want to get in business, then I would say the biggest thing you have to do is get used to talking to people. Because even if you run a bunch of traffic and you do a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily require you to speak with people, just the ability to communicate, it's just getting out of your comfort zone. I think doing that is going to develop a lot of skills that'll translate over in business. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I have a friend. She is what they call a statue act. So she pretends to be a statue.
Oh, that's pretty badass. That's funny.
Yeah, and she's awesome at it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And her name is Sydney, and she's probably listening to this at some point too. And she is like a girl in white, standing on a little white podium, and she does this thing where she winks. She's like this little diminutive girl, and and she gives this little wink to people as they go by, and boy, oh boy, it's magic. It's people give her a lot more money and stuff.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. That's pretty badass. That's a lot. I love it. You should video her in action. That's pretty funny.
I'm going to end up seeing her in a couple of weeks from now, and I will try to get.
Is she in New York?
No, she's in New Orleans.
Oh, there you go. That's pretty badass. Pretty badass. You gotta definitely take a video of that. I want to see it.
Yeah, you'll love it. It's hilarious, and then see people's reactions too. It's funny.
Right? Well,
all right, so
yeah.
let's talk about maybe what we're going to talk about next week. We're giving some good things people can practically go out and investigate and do. I mean, tomorrow, if they so wish. What are we going to come up with for these people for next week?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of this stuff we should break down, maybe bring out some lesson plan or something for everybody, because I want to be able to deliver a lot of content, and it's so hard to do in like 30 minutes or 20 minutes.
It is.
But that's we'll focus on. We'll be able to get it. I think for next week, I can definitely talk about copy because that's kind of like my thing. So I can talk about copy and maybe some little video tricks I've discovered on YouTube to really get you a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
And I can definitely throw that in. I mean, what do you think is the biggest? You should ask everybody, what is it that you want to know, so we can really hammer down on exactly what people need help with. I don't want to keep regurgitating shit everybody already knows.
No, that's true. I think, and that's another thing we'll get better at as this podcast goes along, is if people want to contact us.
Yeah.
We now have a fan page on Facebook, which is probably the easiest way to send questions and stuff, so it's not split between the two of us.
Yeah, that's
cobbling it all. Yeah, and that is facebook.com /Takeover Tuesday podcast. So if people want to just post questions and stuff about stuff they want to learn about, or send a message on there, or whatever you're comfortable with. We can hammer down on whatever topics or whatever, explain even more, go into more depth on some of the things we've talked about already. And next week we'll delve into some of Carlos's video tricks, and I'll talk maybe more about the psychology of getting money from people on the street.
Yeah.
Because there are certain things that are very important I've learned from other great performers.
That's awesome. I'm excited to hear your part. I love that shit. All that stuff is really badass because you really deal with humans. So
yeah, I'm excited to hear your tricks too, because I know you've done a lot of video stuff, Carlos. So I look forward to it as well.
Sweet. Well, we'll crush this shit on Tuesday. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening to this call, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Keep kicking ass.
Later.